All right, so well, good morning. Good Tuesday morning. It's so nice to see both of you here. So we are, obviously working within a virtual reality for right now during this COVID-19. So I just wanted to say thank you to both of you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us this morning and to share your practice and your professional insight into contemporary art. So, so I'm going to introduce Shannon, but before I do so, I also just want to thank all of Atlanta Contemporary's generous sponsors that are supporting us during this unprecedented time. We've been very fortunate to have donors and members support us, and we are grateful to them and to their contributions. So thank you very much. So I'm going to read Shannon's bio as well as I can. So Shannon Morris is an arts administrator, curator, and educator. Currently, she serves as gallery director of the Mary S. Bird Gallery at Augusta University. In 2018, her proposal for presenting the work of Bojana Ginn received an Ellsworth Kelly Award presented by the Foundation for Contemporary Arts and the Ellsworth Kelly Foundation. Today, Shannon will be facilitating a discussion with Bojana Ginn, whose work, Every Line is Sentient, Every Dot is Alive, is installed within the Chute Space at Atlanta Contemporary. So Shannon, thank you very much.
Thank you, Veronica, and thank you for having me to do this. I wanted to start with sort of an introduction that'll allow Bojana to help guide me through. Bojana, you were born in what is the former Yugoslavia. You're Serbian. Mm-hmm. And I want to begin by highlighting the fact that prior to your pursuing an artistic career, you earned an MD from the University of Belgrade in 2001. A year later, after following your heart, you were married, living in Atlanta, and working in the biology department at Emory University. And you began to create art. Eventually, you would choose to leave science and pursue art full-time. Can you talk about why you made this choice and what led you to do it?
Yeah, well, first of all, hello to everybody. Thank you so much for doing this. I wish there were different circumstances, but I think it's wonderful that we have this alternative now where we can stay in touch. Yes, since I was a child, I had these different passions, and art was always one of them, those, but I was never really encouraged to pursue artistic career. I grew up never knowing what actually means to be a professional artist. So when I moved to Belgrade and during my studies in medicine, I just really these are popping the little messages, sorry. I start missing art and creativity, and I was always doing paintings and drawings and then through the years, this like a hunger became almost, I just missed the creativity very much. And I knew that I was on the path that probably will not be something that I would be very happy with. I mean, there were some things in medicine that I really loved, like a couple of like neurology, histology, but for the most part, I was just missing something expressive. And when I moved to States, it was just the time to start from the beginning. It was like the fresh start opportunity. And I just knew that I should go into art. I wasn't sure immediately what kind of art, would it be a painting or design but anything creative. And the path kind of led me to go to Savannah College of Arts and Design, where I finished my master's in sculpture. So it was a dream come true.
Sounds lovely. So, Bojana, there are three things that I find really intriguing about your work, and that they all three sort of relate to your the way that you create and the significance of your work. One being the material that you use, which relates also to your growing up as a child, and seeing your aunts work with the wool of the sheep. The method that you use to create, and the movement that's in your work that which we can see right now in the video. Sometimes it's an actual literal movement, and sometimes that movement often creates texture. So picking those like one by one, do you want to start with the material and the significance of materials in your work?
Yes. Yeah, I would love to talk a little bit about the wool. What I love about it is the ancient material. They start using this material like 10,000 years ago. Around 10,000 years ago was when sheep was domesticated, but wool actually did not look the way it looks today. The animal just was like this hairy animal. And then people used the selective breeding to create the species that has the wool as we know it today. So even in this like ancient times, the material was bioengineered, it was man-made. We know that sheep is the first animal to be cloned, which is something that I kind of really like that stands there, you know. So this connection to bioengineering is something that is very interesting to me, and it's something that later through technology I like to play with in my work. It's also ancestral material, right? In almost every culture in the world, the wool it's a feminine material. Women worked with it for thousands of years. It is protective, it is warm, it protects us from elements, you know. We use it to shelter our bodies, to shelter our homes. It's a kind of healing material, even spiritual for me. I use it kind of to counterpart these fast technologies that we have today. I knew that on one hand, I wanted to follow something that says I live in 21st century, some kind of tool that is, you know, significant for our time. But at the same time, I wanted to keep the connection with the hand. And so using this material really helps me with that, because the process is slow, it's tactile, it's haptic, and it kind of seduces even the video into a mode that it's much more slow. It's almost like the material demands that. And when you mentioned the process, usually wool is used kind of as a felt or thread. I use it a little bit in a different way. I like to stretch the fibers of a material and expose it as tissue, because it's a biomaterial, and you can see the hair and tangles kind of with the naked eye. It's laid out in a very ephemeral and a fragile way. These are all things that appeal to me as a sculptor, but also as somebody who comes from the scientific background, to use it as a tissue and not as a thread or felt. So that would be, I think, all of those elements are something that attracts me to this material.
And the method you've really already spoken to a bit, but I think another thing that people might be interested in is your method for creating an installation. There's a specific process that you go through in laying out the installation and creating it. Would you like to address that? I think it's interesting.
Sure. I think the process for me, I always start with something familiar, something that I know, something that like a conclusion from a previous work. And then I I kind of manipulate elements in video or sometimes in paper. And there's the moment when I kind of get lost a little bit, because in my work, there's always this balance between a concept and intuition. So there's a little bit of this conceptual background and steps, but then I leave the place for just the play. And so through this little experimentation and play, I feel like I come back to the original idea. And what comes first is always either video, either the shape and the engineered drawing of lights. And that is something that I lay out first. It's very important, the architecture of space. And every installation that I've did, well, in the last maybe 10 years, was designed for a specific space. And so architecture play a very big part. I wish that I would be able actually to create the whole work on site, because once when you come into a place, you see things that you can't see on architectural drawing, maybe a texture on the wall, or a pipe that suddenly is there and you didn't see it coming. And so there's lots of these elements that you can kind of work with. But anyways, depending on this architecture, I lay out shapes and place the lights, and then I filled these spaces with wool. So that's usually how it works.
Yes, yes. And that's something I think that people find very interesting. And also movement, the movement in the work when there's video present, and especially when there's both video and wool, there often is a texture created that is an illusion. So for a moment to talk about that and your intent with the movement work.
So the movement is there because of the video, and what I've been using for many, many years is this like a web or a map. It's basically what you see behind me, this moving drawing. What that is, it's like mathematical representation of a structure of a wall. So it's basically the digital counterpart to wool's structure. It's a digital body that is then projected on the physical body. So that's kind of where this phrase "phygital" was born, that I often use. Like the last exhibition was called "Phygital Muse." Is this concept that I really feel reflects the time in which we live. I mean, when you look back through history, we always had similar patterns in economy or politics, but this, bless you. I don't know who that was. But this particular moment when we have these digital technologies is very significant. And I want to capture that in my work as an essence of time in which I live. And especially, you know, it's visible now during this pandemic, where our life in a physical world is kind of halted, and this digital sphere is an opening where we can express our thoughts and creativity. So that's something that is very important to me. I think that video is almost like, I like to call it anti-video. It's really not, doesn't have to do anything with video as a media or like film. It is more as an extension of drawing. And it moves slowly, like I said, because the how I treat the world with my hand. It demands the video to slow down. Very often I synchronize the speed with my breathing. I like to be in this space that it's very calm and meditative. Like what we see in videos around us nonstop is this flashy, super fast, attention grabbing marketing thing that kind of want to grab you. And I wanted to create some kind of space that is counterpart to that. Also with video, it's very important to me that pixel is visible. That's also something that, you know, with this ultra high definition possibilities, I didn't want to follow that. I wanted to create something raw, where you would actually see also this digital texture. So you can zoom into it and see the pixel as a cell of this digital texture, and to merge that digital again with the hair and its tangles. So this connection of technology is super intimate with the body. I would say that that's something that is going to stay. I've been using, this might be actually interesting. I've been using this particular Voronoi-like shape. If you're not familiar with Voronoi diagram, it's basically a web. It's a mathematical model that is used in biology, in medicine, like to represent the cell and to study tissues, but it's also used in studying and creating artificial intelligence and computing. So it is really, for me, important shape that merges, again, biology and body with technology and artificial intelligence. When you look back in the history of making art, you see that artists are very particular about the shapes that they use. I don't know, like cubism or minimalism, which I very much like. So for me, I was actually looking for the shape that will allow me to kind of the shape that it's not too simple, but it's not too complex, that will have these layers of meaning infused into it. And so when I find this, that's something that I really wanted to use, and I used it at the installation at MOCA, Georgia. In a very similar way, like this installation that it's at the Contemporary Art Center. It was used also at the Digital Muse exhibition. I just applied the filter onto it, so the web was translated into lots of little dots. If you stretch this, if you see the negative spaces in this diagram, when you magnify those, you get these Voronoi cells, which are the shapes actually of my work, the work that it's now at the ACAC, and some exhibitions that maybe you saw in Atlanta, like in a white space gallery. But it's a shape that influences lots of my work, the video work, but also the physical, the shape of the wall.
And finally, you've already covered this a bit in terms of when you were discussing the other elements of your work, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about something that I know is important, not only to your work, but also to all of us as humans at this time, and that's connection. And how do you, again, as we kind of go back to that, your training and education, not only as an artist, but as a scientist. Would you like to talk about connection in a broad way?
Yes. You know, I am an abstract artist. And when you're abstract artist, I don't work with literal things. So sometimes it's hard, I think, for people, or challenging to read the work that it's abstract. So I would say that maybe a metaphor or being evocative in a way is something that I use in my work to address lots of different kind of questions. One of them definitely is this place of softness and connectivity. I think that Wool is talking about, you know, it's just a material that projects warmth and sympathy, and the kind of creates this safe space. We kind of react to it almost like with a gut. It's just a material that almost calms you. And when I am in the space with people, when they come in, that's something that I hear a lot. I would say that this flow of drawing or connected lines of flux is like it is a web, and it does reflect this connectivity in a visual way, in an abstract way. The interconnectivity, the flow of information, the stream of consciousness, I would say these layers of meaning are infused there, and in an abstract way, non-literal way. It's something that is very important to me. You know, sometimes I think of my work, it's almost like some kind of scenarios for future or desire or of outcome that I would like to see. And so this merging of a physical and ancient in a very clean way, and the environment that is plastic free and organic, but it's fused with very high tech digital thought or information. It's almost like some kind of biopsy of future landscapes that I would like to see, that we see now with you know, how in this time of, you know, where we don't move that much and there's less CO2 released in the atmosphere, and people are more connected and aware of the problems of environment. It seems like everybody wants to solve the problem. You can almost see the power of people coming together and how much we can accomplish. And it's almost like, for me, this vision for future of connectivity and gentleness and kindness, but information is very important. As we can see now, you know, the information that we actually all want to hear of how to act, how to make situation better, you know, how important that is. So I would say my work, it is in that way kind of utopian vision for maybe future, or maybe right now, what's happening, what is possible.
Thank you so much, Bojana.
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. So I was taking notes when you were talking, and you said something that was just so poetic and really, really quite beautiful. And you ended up wrapping it up too in what you were saying at the conclusion of that last question. But you said that you start from a conclusion of a previous work. And I loved that. I thought that was really beautiful, particularly in your aspiration to construct this scenario of a future. So in thinking about that, do you then see your work as an iterative process that you're then aspiring to, you know, construct this ideal world, or is its idyllic kind of sense of reality really ideal? I mean, how do you navigate that space?
It's really complex. It ends simple. I would say it came to me through work, right? Because when I started, I had all these ideas. I wanted to put everything in my work. I wanted to explore materials in all kind of different way. I wanted to explore ideas in all kind of different way. And I wanted to put so much into the work that it was a place for me to think. It was a place for me to invent. It was a place for me to find these like answers And so I think with time, as much as, you know, like when you're a young artist, you don't really know everything. You don't really know what you're doing. But then you put the work out there. It's in the gallery. And then you become not just artist, you become the viewer of the work. And as a viewer of the work, you're kind of analyzing it and you're learning from it. It's almost like I am pulling the work with something that I know, but then I create something that maybe I partially don't understand. This is something that really excites me. It's like some kind of mystery that's coming out of or through myself. And then as a viewer, I am kind of thinking and observing my own work, and it's giving me certain answers. And so I feel that process is keep repeating. I take these answers, I'm putting into a new work, but then I get lost and work does something new, right? And takes me to another place that is surprising for me, that excites me, that I myself don't understand. And then it starts again. I'm trying to understanding and learn from it. And so it's always, it's like everything rolls into this circle of knowing and not knowing, of being found and then being lost. Because if everything was just clear to me all the time, I think that would be very boring. I don't know, did I answer the question?
No, I thought that was amazing. But when you were talking about it, you know, and you referenced the fact that many artists utilize kind of a specific forms and shapes, and you can even think about, you know, Renaissance artists trying to reference Fibonacci sequences and things like that. Like in your earlier question that you were just answering, you're trying to uncover something that, you know, for you, it's driving you in your work, but is that thing that you're trying to uncover, this sequence of forms and relativity, is it kind of written to such a degree that, you know, your aspiration to uncover it is to, in a sense, release it as well, that it, like, you're hoping to unveil something that is veiled and in existence naturally. Does that make sense?
I like that. I do. I think we all try to do that in a way, in a sense that life is a mystery, right? And so many things are uncovered, and I think we all love mystery. And so trying to figure things out in an artistic way, to understand the life, to understand the moment in which we live, to ponder about it, it is just like a natural for me. I think for all of us, and to unveil it, you know, I like this. There is also like a method in how you unveil things, right? And I think that really depends on an artist. Some use humor, some like to just demystify things. The way I like to work, I like to kind of reveal it, but in a way that's still partially hidden. I think I like this mystery. I like my work, when you see it, to be a little mystifying. I think that's something that excites me in other people's work. And so I would say, yes, it's revealed, you know, lots of my work is completely transparent, like you can see through the fiber. So it's there, but not literal.
I think what's interesting also, Bojana, about this, and going back to Veronica's questions, is that even though your work is abstract, there is a narrative. So you have this narrative, and it's even continuing from one work to the other.
Yeah, I like to know it. I'm not editing.
She was out for as long as she could be out. So
yeah, my dog was falling asleep as well, and he was dreaming, so I put myself on mute for a minute. I think, you know, we're at some point going to open back up, and we're going to be allowing people to come into the space and experience your piece down in the Chute Space. And you know, for those that have watched this interview that have yet to see the physical experience of what the work is in Chute Space, do you have any, you know, they're kind of in a sense getting the answers before they see the work if they've watched this video. So do you have any sort of guidelines to how people should engage with the work when they do go down the stairs and see the work in person?
Yeah, I think from what I experienced at the opening, I think people were doing fine. Actually, I was learning from them. That's the most amazing thing about being an artist that I miss so much, is this live conversation. And people really, they love to come to me and they tell me, I mean, everything from, you would have people reacting from like, oh, I see an ocean here. And then we would talk about nature or mountains. And then we would have talk about consciousness and how our mind works and the future of body and this digital world. So it's almost like the work is, you know, and I do believe that art tells you who you are, right? Because we project of who we are when we see something abstract, and we reveal actually our own thoughts. And this is something that is so interesting to me. So whatever it is, wherever the work takes people, I am completely fine with that. And that's the back to the diagram, this shape, you know, that is so fascinating to me, that it's used not just in biology and medicine and, you know, artificial intelligence, but also in geology, archaeology. So it's everywhere, you know, it's in the body, it's in the nature, it's in the technology. And so these layered meanings, I am just so happy because, you know, my work used to be so complex. I was working with systems, and to find the space and a shape where I can actually layer meanings with a pretty simple form is very exciting.
I think it'll be really enlightening for people, and you're so generous in letting them interpret the work in the way that they see fit, because it does, you know, that's a very generous way to think, that you're providing kind of a space, right? Almost to your, going back to what you were saying about that you start from a conclusion of a previous work, that in a sense, like, people are having their own conclusion of the work and you're starting fresh even in that conversation. So we're looking forward to when we're back open and you can have those conversations with patrons again.
Thank you. I look forward. I really hope that will be sooner than later.
Yeah, me too.
For having this conversation with us, Bojana.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, so I do want to say thank you to Shannon and thank you to Bojana for,
thank you.
Yeah, this was wonderful. And as Shannon said, today is Tuesday, March 31st of 2020. So, you know, we're looking forward to that time when we're all able to come back together in person. But right now we're all together apart, and we are grateful that you both took the time to do this, and thank you very, very much for everything.